Hey there, I'm Juan Francisco, and I'm a psychic medium. I'm here with you to explore your intuition, the supernatural, and self empowerment. This is Third Eyesight. Hey, everybody, welcome to a new week of Third Eyesight with me and Cella's Pitter Patter Paws. As she approaches me and my microphone, you might be able to tell there's something different if you're watching this on video. I decided to switch around my background for my video. So you have my altar behind me, and the camera angle is not ideal today. And what's kind of odd is I need to look to, well, I don't need to look. I'm just going to trust that my computer is picking up everything from my camera right now in front of me. But if I look to my right, I can see myself on my computer screen. And that is where I used to sit for my backdrop for the videos. But now I'm looking over here and my altar is behind me. So what used to be to the right of me is now in back of me. It's a whole switcheroo. And I am waiting to order a mini tripod for my phone to prop this up better. So you see a little bit more of the wall behind me. Not that there's a lot to look at, but I don't know. I just want it to look a little bit better. I want the angle to be improved the next time you see a video on YouTube for the podcast. I'm also struggling with a cold, so if you hear me cough or try to struggle or try to not cough and struggling to not cough, um, just please forgive me. I've come down with a cold and I'm doing okay, but it's just an annoying dry cough. So, on today's episode, I want to talk about gender and spirit. Gender identity is a unnecessarily hot topic right now because there is a lot of discomfort with the field of gender study and gender identity, and there are a lot of questions people have, a lot of hesitancy to talk about it openly because it's something that for many people it is a new concept, but it's not really a new concept. I'm not going to get into the discourse out there about gender identity, gender dysphoria, gender norms. I'm not going to get into the political aspect of it because it's unfortunately being so politicized right now. And I'm not going to get into right or wrong, what to believe, not to believe, or what facts to know. I'm not going to get into the field of gender studies or the science behind transitioning or identifying as a gender that's outside the binary, because I'm not an expert in that, and I myself am a cisgender man, which means I was assigned male at birth and I identify as a man. And so I feel like I don't have a place to talk about any expertise regarding gender identity or any of that. But what I do want to talk about is, as a psychic medium, what does it mean to understand gender and the binary or things outside the binary when channeling spirit? And it's not a question that I have. I'm sorry, I'm slightly distracted by the computer screen. This is a new experience for me, but hopefully you like the new background. I digress. I am so easily distracted. But anyways, this is not a topic that I hear often about in psychic mediumship circles, and I mean circles of discussion. It's not brought up a lot, but I think in this age of more open discussion about gender and genders or lack thereof that exists outside of the binary that we are so accustomed to in this society, I think it's important to address some questions like, what does it feel like to channel someone who was in their physical life outside of the binary? But I want to zoom out more. I want to look at this from an even higher level. Instead of asking what does it feel like to channel someone who in their physical life lived outside of the gender binary, let's first ask ourselves, does the soul have a gender? Is the soul male or female or something else? Does God have a gender? Does the universal energy have a gender? Now, so many of us are so used to hearing about God as a man, as a male figure. He, him, his power, his will be done. And there's nothing bad about that. There's nothing negative about that. But I think it's healthy to question, why did someone decide to default to God being a man, being a father figure? Why not a mother figure? Like many other cultures tend to see their source energy as a mother figure. Does God have a gender? Does the energy that create who we are, what everything is, have a gender? Does it have to have a gender? And when we die, do we take our gender identities with us? Do we take our sexes with us? I do believe that there is such thing as feminine and masculine energy that exists in all of us. They're not opposing energies. They are not conflicting energies. They are energies that work together like yin and yang. The masculine energy is assertive, outlines direction, creates a plan, based on my understanding. Whereas the feminine energy, it's the caregiving energy. It's creative energy. But then I ask myself, as I'm saying that out loud, and I say I believe in feminine and masculine energies, that these things exist, these two types of energies exist, I ask myself, well, why was caregiving ever labeled feminine? Why was assertiveness ever labeled masculine? So I have to question myself. I'm going to stop myself right there and be honest with you and say, maybe I'll call BS on that a little bit. But what I can say is this is my understanding right now at this point in my life. And maybe that will change. Maybe I'll discover one day, maybe I'll tell you on the podcast in 10 years, there's no such thing as masculine and feminine energy. There's just energy. Maybe that's the truth. I don't know. I need to really think about that. But for now, I'll say that I do believe in these different kinds of energies that make a complete person. And when we are out of balance within ourselves, we are too much of one thing and not the other. Or we are heavily relying on, like, let's say when we go out of our way for other people all the time, but we never take care of ourselves. That could be an exploit of one's own feminine energy. Or when someone puts themselves always first and doesn't address the needs of others around them, only thinks about themselves. An exploitation of masculine energy. So I do believe in these energies at this point in my life, but I also believe that anybody, regardless of their gender identity, can house these two energies within them because they're within all of us. So it doesn't really matter what someone's gender identity is when they're on the other side. Therefore, and this is where I'm going to be a little bit ideological, therefore we shouldn't really I'll put it this way. We should respect people's gender identities in the physical life because on the other side, none of us have a gender. We're all just energy. We're all made up of the same kind of energy, the masculine, the feminine combined. And so when I think about the hypothetical, like if I were to channel the soul of someone who in their physical life here on earth was a transgender person, it would be just like channeling any other person. There's nothing different about it. Because even when I channel people who in this physical life were cisgender, which means they identified throughout their life as the sex they were assigned at birth, I will still tell people I'm feeling a masculine energy or I'm feeling a father figure. I will never say, well, I rarely say I feel there's a man. I actually try, even when I do feel like I'm about to say that, I try to not say it. Not because of a fear of being wrong, but because there's so many possibilities. I mean, someone could be a father figure and be a woman in someone's life. There's so many different ways that we relate to people in authority who take care of us. Like a single mother who took on the father role and the mother role. I know I'm saying a lot of things that may sound really all over the place, but what I'm trying to say is that what matters more than the person's identity in the physical world, their gender identity, whether they're a man or a woman or otherwise, is the role they had in someone's life. That matters more than were they a man, were they a woman. That's evidential information. Now, look, it is important. Like if someone wants to hear from their grandma, there is the word grandma. There is a gender tied to the word grandmother, and so that is important information. But there have been times where I'll say that I feel this young person and XYZ ABC, and I don't really hit on a gender quite yet. Maybe like in the first three pieces of evidential information, the gender is not very important, and it still lands for the person. It still lands for the client or the sitter that, oh, this is my cousin. She was XYZ years old when she passed. Gender is just one piece of information about a person. It is not everything about a person when it comes to a psychic mediumship reading. Therefore, when someone who is transgender, when they pass, it's no different to read them than it is any other person. Now, I haven't personally channeled souls of people who identified as transgender in their physical life. I haven't had that opportunity yet. But I'm sharing what I'm telling you. I'm sharing based off not just my own personal spiritual beliefs, but just based off of what I experienced with channeling souls who were not transgender in their physical life. Not that I know of. The gender is just one piece of information. It's not everything. And it could be a key to unlocking more information about a person. But I think what I really want people to take away from this episode is having these firm categorizations for gender identity when it comes to spirituality, when it comes to connecting with those on the other side. It can be very self-limiting. Because if we believe that when someone passes, they have to be the same gender that they were when they were in the physical world, it puts spirit in a box. And spirit is more than just these categories that we have created for ourselves in the physical world to make things feel easier to digest, to make it seem easier to understand people around us. Spirit has no gender. It has no gender. When we die, we don't take our genitals with us. We don't take our hair color with us. We don't take things that have to do with the physical body. We don't take our ego with us. And it's not to say that hair color is bad. It's not to say that ego is bad. Ego's not bad either. These are all parts of who we are as human beings. And the DNA makeup of who we are as human beings, that's who we are in the physical world and everything that comes with that. So then you may ask, well, Quan, if hair color and gender and these things don't exist on the other side, then why are you telling me, oh, you see a man with blue eyes and he's in his senior age and he feels like a grandfather? Well, spirit will show up for us in a reading, will show up for you in a reading the way you remembered them. Because if spirit just shows up as spirit, as just spirit energy, at its basest, at its most distilled, it's not very helpful for you recognizing them, right? Spirit really has to work to present itself in the way that you remembered them. It's not to say that the grandmother that you had growing up is no longer the same grandmother. Spirit is that grandmother. The soul of your grandmother is that grandmother. She is her and more. That's what I want to really drive home, is that as Walt Whitman said, I contain multitudes. We are very used to the labels and the boxes that society puts us in on this planet, but we are that and more beyond that. And when we die, we become everything. We become all that is. God is all that is. And God has no gender. God is male, female, and otherwise. It's kind of like, I don't know if this is a really good example, but it's coming up for me right now. Let's say you are painting, you're doing some kind of like fill in the color. You got a box of crayons and you got like a blank monotone illustration. You can fill in all the colors you want. Well, you can decide if you want to make it a monochromatic illustration by filling in with all blue crayon or shades of blue, or you can make it almost like rainbow and do all different kinds of colors. You get to decide what colors you want to make that illustration. You can color in whatever you want. It doesn't mean that you don't know what red is if you choose all blue, because you have the options in front of you. You have the Crayola box, the crayon box in front of you. You just choose from the colors you want to pick and you make this illustration based on the color you want to give that illustration. But yellow, black, red, green, they're all still there for you to choose from. I think that's kind of how I'm seeing God. God has all these colors to work with. And God will select specific colors, specific vibes, specific characteristics, qualities, attributes for different people. But it doesn't mean that those are the only colors, the only attributes that are in existence. There's a whole other box of crayons that the universe lives in. That's so silly. This feels really silly. I hope that's not a horrible representation of what I'm thinking. I feel like it's a not great representation, but that's the best example I could think of. What was it that is it Hamlet? There are more. I'm gonna butcher and horribly paraphrase the Shakespeare quote. I think it was Hamlet, that there are more things than live in your mind, Horatio, something like that. There are things beyond our wildest dreams that we can't even think of. We haven't thought of yet. Endless possibilities to who we are, who we can be. And when we pass around the other side, we're limitless. So why would we think in such binaries? Why would we think that heaven is just a duplicate of what we're experiencing on earth? It may be in some respects. I don't know. Knock on wood, I haven't died, and I hope not to anytime soon. But why do we want to make heaven and the other side feel just like it has the rules of what we live with on earth? That's where our ego comes in. Our ego wants the familiar, but we can't grasp that we are limitless. Because I think for some of us, myself included, that when we start to believe that we are limitless, that there are binaries we don't have to live within, that could be kind of scary to some of us, because possibility can be scary, and living outside the norm can feel scary. But if you also think about it, the norm, what is the norm? Because when you go to another country, another culture, it's a very different norm than what we have in the United States, for one. In Europe, for some of you. There are many different norms out there. So when it comes to gender and spirit, working with spirit, I believe that we can channel that masculine energy. We can channel that feminine energy. We can decide which to feel. But we can also sit comfortably in the energy of just being, which is genderless, I believe. I believe beingness, spirit, God, universe, whatever you want to call it, is genderless. I'm going to just let that sit for a second because I've said it already in this podcast episode, but I feel like it's even hard for me. I'm going to be very honest. It's hard for me to 100% wrap my head around it because it is limitless. It's like, huh? What? There's so much that we limit ourselves to. I kind of go back to the first time I think I heard Teresa Caputo, the Long Island medium, do a reading for a young man who lost his partner of the same sex. There goes the coughing, excuse me. And the way she read for him, I remember being a gay college student or high school student and seeing how I had seen all the readings that she had done for straight couples, people who lost their husbands, women who lost their husbands, men who lost their wives. And I saw her do this reading for this young man who lost his partner, his male partner. And the way she read for him was the same way she read for any other couple who wasn't a gay couple. And there was so much love and so much. I remember in one of those readings, she said about, I think she was channeling a man's mother for him and his living partner. They were both clients in the reading. And she said something that like, oh no, your mother had something to do with you two meeting each other. I thought, wow, that's so outside of the norm of what I grew up with. Because I grew up with the idea that gay relationships are not the norm. They're odd or they're not typical. And here is this psychic medium who grew up very Catholic and still practices Catholicism, who's treating the gay couples in front of her or the gay person in front of her the way she would treat a straight couple, the way she would treat someone, a woman who lost her husband, a man who lost his wife. And now I think we are a little more accustomed to hearing about gay relationships compared to 15 years ago. But I think it's just one example of we can think beyond the norms that we live with. We can do that. And spirit, that's how spirit functions. Spirit functions in love. And not just love romance. Yes, spirit exists in that too. But spirit only knows love. And that includes self-love. That includes honoring oneself and how one feels. How one wants to live their internal life on the outside. As hard as it may be. Spirit honors that. Spirit acknowledges it. Spirit acknowledges authenticity. And the last thing I'll say is that if spirit is, I guess I'll say spirit is non-binary. If spirit is genderless, void of gender, then wouldn't spirit be totally okay with people identifying whatever way they want to in this physical world? That's the most ideological I will get in this episode, because I really don't want to distract from the importance of you hearing that spirit honors the way we want to identify, that there are no norms on the other side. There is only love, and that everyone is valid on the other side. Everyone's journey is valid on the other side. I hope this gave you something to think about, because I don't see this often talked about online. I've seen I think, an Instagram thread or two hitting on this topic of, how do you as a medium read a soul who was non-binary or transgender, and how do they come across in a reading? And when I read those questions, I think they're very interesting. It's things that, again, it's something that's not talked about often, but I don't have any reason to believe that it's any different than reading any other person. And I think to believe that it would be different would be quite ignorant, personally, I believe. We are all just soul energy, every single one of us, regardless of how we identify, how we believe, how we feel, how who we feel we are, who we really are, and all the above, who we authentically are, regardless of any of that. We are all just soul energy, and authenticity is the most important thing to spirit. And I mean, authenticity, oof. No, I'll go down another rabbit hole if I keep going. But I'll just say authenticity, for so many of us who have tried to live life inauthentically, it really hits us hard when we realize that we've done that. And then once we embark on a journey of authenticity, spirit responds in kind. Not that spirit becomes authentic. Spirit is always authentic. But it's like when I tell people, when you see a sign from spirit, say thank you. Acknowledge spirit, because spirit thrives off of gratitude and love. That's the way it functions. So when we live a life of self-love and honoring ourselves, we're opening ourselves up to all the possibilities that spirit has to give us, because we are unlocking what's already within us, which is that limitless possibility. So I'm going to be going down another rabbit hole if I keep going, but I hope this does add some clarity to any questions that may be out there about gender identity and mediumship and channeling spirit. And if you have any thoughts or questions, please email me, DM me. Please leave a review if you're enjoying the podcast. And I wish you so many blessings and a lovely day. Thank you. Hey, are you liking the supernatural and self-empowerment talk? Then follow the podcast and please leave a review. If you want me to talk about a specific subject on the podcast, or you have a question for the podcast, go to juanfranciscospirit.com and go to my contact page and submit that question.